Why should we all understand the Constitution? To start with, it is the supreme law of the land. So all laws written by the Congress, by the state legislatures, and by all local governing bodies, and all acts undertaken by anyone, anywhere in the government that conflict with the Constitution, are unconstitutional and invalid. Even though we have all been taught since grade school that in a democracy the majority rules, what we should have been taught is that in our democracy, the majority rules only when that majority is consistent with the Constitution. That's the reason that everyone in government, local, state, and federal, takes an oath to uphold the Constitution above all else in the law. The Constitution does more than just establish and define the federal government. It guarantees that no government can interfere with basic human liberties. We all know what these liberties are: freedom to think, to speak, to publish, to travel, to complain to the government, freedom to worship or not to worship, the right to defend yourself and your freedoms, the right to be left alone, the right to have a government that is fair and a government that defends your freedoms. The Constitution recognizes that those rights are integral to our humanity and imposes upon the government an affirmative obligation to defend them. Question: if the Congress or if a state legislature enacted a law which the president or a governor signed that abolished the freedom of speech, would we all still have the freedom of speech? Answer: yes, because the freedom of speech is a natural right, and we all have it by virtue of our humanity, whether the government recognizes that or not. Question: how would we know, and who would tell us that a law interfering with the freedom of speech is unconstitutional? Answer: we all know when our liberties are being curtailed, but it is the job of the courts to tell us and to stop the curtailment. Now, some have argued that in a democracy, the majority should rule, and thus always get its way. After all, we fought a revolution against a king in order to get this right. Yes, but the Constitution was written to keep the majority from trampling the minority. That's why we have judges. We have three branches of government. Two of them, the Congress and the President, are the democratic branches since they are popularly elected. Their job is to do the people's will consistent with the Constitution. But the third branch, the judiciary, is the anti-democratic branch. Its job is to assure that the other two branches follow the Constitution and thus assure our liberties. Many patriotic Americans have felt frustrated when the courts declare unconstitutional something that many folks want to be the law. But if the law violates the Constitution, it is the job of the courts to tell us so and to invalidate that law. Were this not so, then nothing could prevent a popular majority from writing laws that take the freedom and take the property of an unpopular minority. Throughout our history, we have seen periods of time when the system worked and periods of time when it did not. In the series you are about to watch, you'll see times when we sent to the government representatives and presidents who loved freedom and feared big government. They remembered, or they understood, what it was like to live under a king. You will also see that in more recent times, we have generally sent to the government representatives and presidents who were more interested in power than in freedom, in telling us how to live instead of leaving us alone. How did this happen? Why did we lose freedom? Does the government today even remotely resemble the one the Constitution established in 1789? These are the questions we will ask and attempt to answer in this series of talks on the Constitution and human freedom. As you watch and listen, keep an eye and an ear out for all the things that Congresses and presidents have done to subvert the Constitution. They have perpetrated those subversions in times of fear and stress, and with great popular support, because they persuaded the people that upholding the Constitution would be too painful. But they all took a solemn oath to uphold it, and they have all forgotten this truism. If the provisions of the Constitution are not upheld when they pinch as well as when they comfort, they may as well be abandoned.